Hello again, and we are ready for the next very interesting presentation. The subject will be how we close the identity backdoor, and it's a case study. So the thing which I enjoyed the most during the presentations, I would like to welcome Yoat De Veer on stage, the senior product marketing manager from Silversoft. I'm super excited to see the presentation. So yeah, the stage is yours and we all listening.
All right. Thank you, Philip. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and I'm so excited to be here. And this is so much fun. Hack Summit. I hope you can see my screen. I've got some goodies. I've got some demos for you. So I'm Yoad from Silverfort, and we're gonna talk about Scattered Spider. Notorious group. They're live. They're not live. They're still operational. They're not operational. Anyway, we have seen them recently, and we want to make sure that we're telling you what are best practices that, for example, one of our major customers of Silverfort actually managed to, get them away eradicated. So if you want to connect with me, Yoad Dvir on LinkedIn, this is my profile is down there. And again, super happy and thank you, Hack Summit organizers, for inviting me. Let's get into things. So we're going to talk about a little bit about also the customer that got hacked, a little bit anonymous. Forgive me for that. What Silverfort is doing for you, how the attack happened, unfold. Also, generally speaking, about the market for ransomware, what we could have stopped, what we've seen in real time, and key lessons. Well, I don't see you, gentlemen, but because I'm assuming we're good, then I'm giving myself the thumbs up and thank you so much. Let's get the show on the road. So Silverfort, if you're not familiar for Silverfort, this is like your dark night. We're all over the place. You may not have heard about us, but you should have heard about us. We're 500 people, we're employees worldwide, various locations. I can say that I've been with Microsoft for over 10 years, and this is how I got to know the Hack Summit. And I'm super happy to be here today also because Microsoft and Hack Summit and Silverfort are also great friends and key technology partnerships, as you can see on the screen. And I'm really happy that I am continuing my personal, mission to make identity security, bring it to every organization, things that were started with Microsoft, and again, continuing to do today. Some name droppings on the screen, some good reviews on Gartner. Trust me, check us out. What do we do? What does Silverfort do before we actually get to the case study? So we're for those that know us or not know us, we're traditionally known for MFA, right? Multi-factor authentication to apply MFA across the board to previously unprotected resources, enable adaptive risk-based and situational MFA across everything that you have, legacy, on-prem, command line, Windows logon, industrial systems, and without requiring much changes. Also, non-human identities and AI agents. Yes, we're 2 minutes into the session and I mentioned AI and AI agents. I'm super, my head is exploding from protecting AI agents, and we're definitely big on that. So just imagine you cannot enforce MFA, right, on your NHIs, on your service account. You cannot ask a service account to have a second factor, right? This is for humans. And the problem even gets more complex with AI agents. So what do we do? You have to, check the intent, check what they know, what is the context, and then assess in real time and reinforce. AI agents is a different topic. We're going to focus on the IR, but again, this is, as you know, this is dominating every discussions today. So definitely very active on MFA, on NHIs, and lastly, ITDR and ISPM, the security posture and actually deflecting threats in real time. We're preventing ransomware with an easy approach. We love the approach. We call it freeze the attack, halt the attack, stop everything from happening, and then start to gradually understanding, eradicate the perpetrator, the adversary from your network, and then gradual recovery. Why do I believe that identity is the number one target and the weakest link? So cybersecurity, cyber attacks, they succeed because identity remains unprotected in some parts of your environment. Think about accessing a virtual management environment, put that in your mind. and how do you control and enforce those credentials with high standards and second or third factors. So some stats that we see 2024, this is based on research and internal and also internal data that we collect with permissions, of course. Ransomware starts with Active Directory. Almost every major ransomware last year, and also we see this trend continuing to 2025. Yes, Active Directory is still with us. This dinosaur is still here, and it's involved in almost in every major campaign. Service accounts, the silent threat, maybe not so silent anymore, but still it's like silent because there's no human attached to it that can scream out. 80% of AD breaches involved compromised service accounts. Often, we cannot re-say that anymore with domain admin access. Misconfigurations, again, up. Why misconfiguration? Security exposures, they stem from misconfigs, and especially identity and credential errors. So maybe the applications and the operating system are covered more likely, but identity, as you can see, is becoming first and front row. Think about it this way. Our identities are exposed as we are cloud first, SaaS first, mobile first. Identity, there is no like firewall or VPN. Everybody can challenge your identity, password guessing, password stuffing, etc. And once that is breached, you're good. Your organization is good to go. PowerShell, last one, attackers' favorite tool. Attackers use scripting tool, PowerShell in 70% of breaches. To move laterally, can we apply MFA on PowerShell? Don't let me ruin the surprise. Of course, yes. A little bit about the ecosystem, what we see in ransomware. All right, so it all starts, with either a direct exploit or a brute force or password guessing or, trying to drop a maliciousware on your machine. And then once this is done, maybe those players do not want to own or eat the entire cake, right? They have, once they have established, they are perceived as the initial access brokers, and access is being put on the market. And yes, you can have, like for Australia or from Austria or from the United States, some examples, right? This is just like an old script, like an old example. You can pay, deposit some kind of Bitcoin and get your access to an environment. And those are the access mechanism, RDP, domain user, etc., which antivirus runs on the environment, etc. Nothing new here. You just buy access, and this is becoming more and more, this is becoming bigger. Affiliates, once you have sold access, you have another tier with affiliates that actually sell post-exploitation tools. So you have accessed the org. Now you need some kind of way to privilege escalate or move laterally. There are tools also for that, right? And then the entire thing is duct tape or packaged around ransomware as a service. You can buy the entire thing and just go directly to ransomware depending on your appetite. Distribution, there's advertisement in this ecosystem. Then you can have stealers that point directly to the access market or loaders. This is all enabled by Bitcoin and by financial services that are hidden and especially bulletproof hosting. Anonymous tools and communications. You can imagine, choose your favorite communication platform, peer-to-peer or a known one. So ransomware is not going anywhere. It's becoming bigger. You've got, the famous one and the last famous one. Everybody's trying to gather intelligence, right? To deflect and pay, though either pay or do not pay. I don't know what to admit. I say don't pay the ransom, but if you want to get your operation back online ASAP, maybe you should. There's no easy question there. Also consider cyber insurance, etc. Right. So let's just also be very clear on how that works. Initial access. So there are two ways. Either you have an entry point through with valid credentials. So that's with password guessing or phishing that leads to a valid credential. You need to have one valid credentials. Either you steal it from someone or you guess it, and then you can log into an internet exposed service, right? Phishing, brute force your way, and then credentials are gathered via info stealers that are dropped on the machine. This is also based on Mandiant M-Trend report. This is super prevalent also today. Another way for Another way for initial access would be a malicious attachment, classic, right? Email. User clicks on a malicious attachment received via email, collaboration tool, or downloading the file from the internet. Recent development that we see, training employees on identifying those phishing, mark as phishing or training or get a reward for, report on time. It helped mitigate, right, the exposure to a certain extent. But as we can see, there's always like Newton's law of like Newton's law. Essentially, there is force, and then there's a counter force. Threat actors started trying new attacks file format. Sorry, as an example, OneNote, or they're also trying beyond the classic email systems. They're going for non-traditional, like Microsoft Teams. Yes, we're communicating through Teams or other messaging channels. Another thing is that the vulnerabilities, right? They're exploited on devices that are accessible over the internet, and that would be, going directly after VPN concentrators, virtual desktop, or managed file transfers. So basically, you have to complement identity and EDR and your endpoints to work jointly together. This is super important. And lastly, on this one, what accounts are being targeted for privilege escalations from all those parts, right? Privileged users from AD or accounts managing hypervisors, and we're going to focus on those. So you have your command and control center that connects the adversaries or the hackers into your environments. They're trying to give commands to the machine or to the bots that they've dropped in the machine to do privilege escalation, and then lateral movement. And the attacker's end game is to basically make the blast radius as big as possible. That gets us to scatter spiders. So scatter spider trying to move around MFA, trying to find their ways. Nothing new, but they're very successful with that. Recently, Marks and Spencer, as we all heard, was a big one, right? Let me see how we're doing on time. Very good, very good. So Yusuke, human operated privilege accounts or multi-factor authentication. So the best way to protect against lateral movement or expansion of the blast radius or privilege escalation, right, is to extend MFA to systems that traditionally do not support MFA. RDP sessions, HTTP access, just you get immediately triggered for token access, PowerShell, PSExec, or shared folders. You're accessing a folder, treat it like a vault in a way, and then ask for specific ones. And I like this illustration because, as you can see, okay, we have gated some access mechanism or some protocols or some software, basically. But if we don't cover all of them, then the gate is irrelevant in that case, because the attacker will just choose the way that they can go beyond. Also, I want to mention something, I don't know if to refer to it technical, but conceptual, that we see super interesting. One is that tiering model of Active Directory, which is still with us also. Tiering model of Active Directory is now expanding into Entra ID. Basically, you have three tiers: tier 0, tier 1, and tier 2. And this is a big advocate for Microsoft. Tier 0, like if you're running servers on-prem or in the cloud in your IaaS environments, everything that is accessing there, maybe only domain admin to manage your identity infrastructure would be yes, only with MFA. Through a jump host, probably yes. Go through a jump host and then also do that with MFA. The way we see it is also apply authentication firewall. When we say authentication firewall, is basically limiting identity access to the things that only to the specific users, specific devices, source, and endpoints. I'll show you that in the demo that we do. If we go to tier 1, that will be your servers and applications. It can be more than not domain admins should not, dump their hashes, should not be logging in, but they should be signing in with a second or a multi-factor authentication. And on tier 2, we have our normal user standard one. And whenever there is a cross tier one, after you have managed or map your environment, after there's a cross tier one, right? Then after you have set your tiers, there should not be any cross tiering. Cool. So why existing identity security tools are not enough? Because some systems, surprise, surprise, don't have MFA or security in their designs. RDP, SMB protocol, PowerShell, they don't natively support MFA, and attackers know that. So they go after those weaker links because no MFA before. We proud ourselves into being that expansive, like with A, very vast, very modular. Service accounts, they're invisible and pose risk. Again, cannot be challenged with MFA. You need to protect them with profiles, with some kind of fencing. Also, cloud, full of forgotten access and privileged access is not really fully managed. We are all aware of that. So let's combine. So first of all, discover what we do. So I'm jumping between the solution and the problem. Discover every identity from employees with broad access to machine accounts that no one owns. Explore or expose risky access. Again, ISPM, regular users with standard or elevated permissions. Again, move to just in time and enforce smart security control. Block lateral movement, MFA, and stop privilege misuse. And just a visual one, how we do that. Seamless architecture in your middle, MFA your way, and MFA everywhere. Scattered Spider, shifting gears here. They're active since 3 or 4 years ago. Key traits, sophisticated social engineering. They speak English. They are financially motivated. They care about money. They care about extortion. MGM, Caesar's Palace, Maine, brought them to the headlines. Ransomware proliferation through identity abuse. Tactics and techniques, initial access via phishing, as we said, SIM swapping, impersonation, also MFA fatigue. If you're not familiar, is that, just load the user with MFA until they click OK, lateral movements with standard remote monitoring tools and living off the land, with whatever they can find after, having that initial access. They don't have a custom malware. That's very interesting. Defense strategies against them, enforce phishing resistant MFA, right? For example, hardware keys, that's one thing. Monitor, that's also good. Have visibility for anything that's abnormal and educate users, as we mentioned, and implement least privilege and also have your identity detection. So how do they work? So basically we have our we have our IT environment, and the environment is also connected to IaaS and SaaS. They have a high volume of interconnectability that is complex and hard to monitor. We have PAM, we have privileged access management, and we have domain controllers on-prem. We have our workloads running in IaaS, and we have also maybe our directory, like, I don't know, Okta or Entra running in SaaS. So what happened? That makes an easily targeted attack surface. This whole combined thing becomes the scattered spider attack surface, right? So they are just accessing apps, initial access via credential compromise, phishing, and email, right? Landing on the machine. And from there, lateral movement to an infrastructure compromise. So landing on one of the machines that are typically connected to the internet, lateral movement to infrastructure compromise, and then vertical movement between the on-prem and the cloud environment, right? Check this out, very nice. I love this one, the graphic one, boom. And then you're completely exposed. Infrastructure targets, they go after vCenter, the classic one, vCenter infrastructure, virtual one. They go after CyberArk vaulting. They go directly after Active Directory on-prem, and then they go also after your Oktas, your Entras, and also virtual machines in Amazon and in Microsoft. What happens, for example, in the case study for MGM? So step one, initial access through credential compromise on-prem. Step 2.1, lateral movement to the DC for credential dumping and all, and password hash and getting those tickets. Classic living off the land, think Mimikatz kind of techniques. Step 2.2, lateral movement to the Okta sync server, and then vertical movement between on-prem and cloud environment through Okta. Classic one, this is for MGM. By the way, NIST advises for 4 phases of the incident response once you have found those. So you need to have preparation, detection and analysis of what's happening, containment, eradication, and then gradual recovery. Let's put that in the scope of what we do, and then we'll get to the actual attack. Contain the spread of, first of all, we identify someone, we call it someone touch the fence, right? Someone, we identified a malicious actor, apply MFA, and deny access policies just to freeze the attack. On all, you can do that across the board, all environment, all devices, all protocols, all IPs, detect, and then you move to detection. I want to have the attackers reveal their presence. This is key. Why? Because when they try to access a machine, they will be challenged with MFA that will be rejected because they don't have that second factor. They don't have the token to access to, they don't have the answer to the token challenge, right? So this is how we detect them. Once we detect them, we can be able to detect the full attack path, right? And then it can easily unfold its way all the way to patient zero, and then we can start gradual recover, release subnets and segments in the network. We'll go to demo in a second, and I want to go exactly now to now that we have all the right background, we want to go into the case study itself. So a major US-based insurance provider offers a wide range of products, including many facets of insurance. Founded 100 years ago, had we had a real customer, real organization that we had encountered, and stopped. I think that we were one of the first to actually stop, Scattered Spider in its track. This company operating in the Midwest serves millions of policyholders across the United States, recognized for agent network. Okay, 18,000 plus full-time employees. Just imagine how wide their identity attack surface is, and they're big. 12 plus million, 12 plus billion, US dollars annually. All right, cool. So how the attack happened? So attackers use simple but effective tactics to compromise. They actually went for privilege access management, right? They attacked the vault. So it didn't start with malware. It started with identity misuse. This is where it began. It could have been stopped because they didn't have the right identity controls in place. Identity access via social engineering. They impersonated the PAM admin and called the help desk. Under the pretense of a phone change, an attacker convinced support team to remove the MFA token. MFA access, second one, MFA access unlocked. With MFA removed, they logged into previously stolen PAM credentials and gained access to the PAM vault. You can start sensing, and then they start moved laterally. Now that they can access, privilege account, so they used RDP, PowerShell. They leverage SMB and leverage, AAD internal tools, an additional built-in one to move through the network. There are no adaptive controls in place to have real-time detection and prevention on abnormal identity usage. Threat actor profile, very much aligned, when we started working with the accounts, aligned with Scattered Spider or Octo Tempest, an affiliate of Black Hat. Many names, pretty much the same group or an affiliated group. It's a US-based attack vector, fluent in English and very good in voice. So what we have done with this customer, a simple policy applied at the right time could have stopped them when it began. So it's very interesting. We were planning to have a POC with that, prospect, now a customer. On the day of the breach, they called us and said, can we deploy immediately? Can we deploy today? So the attacker, next one, the attacker had credentials, but they did not have a second factor. This is key. So access to the PAM vault was granted because the PAM account had no enforced MFA at the time. And this is just an interesting quote by the IA manager. If we had Silverfort in place prior to the breach, we're confident we would have been able to spot early warning signs, like signals of an early access of the attacker from access to any of the key infrastructure point. So from PLC request to real-time protection in a single day. So PLC schedule confirmation. The customer was 1 week away from starting a POC with us, with Silverfort. And then Saturday, 4 p.m., emergency call called mid-breach. In the middle of the breach, IR is currently happening, requesting immediate deployment. By 10 p.m., you can count how many hours there. Initial deployment complete. Silverfort deployed to 16 domain controls across 3 domains within 6 hours. A week after, scaled across the environment to close to 200 DCs. So from an emergency activation, right, in the mid-reach responded in 30 minutes, 16 DCs secured and then scaling to 200. Live authentication, this is the key here, live authentication logs from AD and Entra AD, and then also understanding risky protocols, SMB, and also NTLM, and even they had NTLM V1, super old one from the 90s, right? The 90s, 30 years ago. NHI protection, block risky non-human activities, again, freezing cross-segment connectivity, and also identifying where is patient zero by going through the attack path, enforcing MFA for admins, enforcing MFA for all DC access, and then applying risk-based blocking, stopping the users according to IPs and access and behavior patterns, and it's all funneled down into risk. Segmentations and lockdown, cut down VPN, guest, and built-in admin access. So in 6 hours, the blocking policy is in place, and by the end of day 1, we were contacted, mobilized, and then deployed to many of the DCs. Authentication visibility was key. Again, Entra ID and logs were integrated. NTLM traffic, they even discovered Exchange server using deprecated NTLM v1. Freezing the attack using restricted access to only specific, privileged machines and accounts, and then also having to block Okta-based service account to prevent external exploitation, so things will not move out. Once we had that, we were able to leverage risk-based and threat intelligence, also leveraging Azure threat intel integration into the Silverfort tool. Policies were created to mitigate compromised user, again, segment the environment. And key lessons before I want to show you a few more things. You cannot protect what you can see. You need to have real-time adaptive control. Non-human identities and non-carbon life forms like AI agents should be managed. Centralized policy, faster containment, and risk-based MFA is no longer optional, it's a must, right? Stopping identity views, stop the attack. Just a diagram, and then I'll show you quickly our demo. So user request access from the IAM infrastructure, right? And then the IAM infrastructure forwards the request to Silverfort. So basically, you go to the IDP asks for, is that okay? Silverfort second, it doesn't matter if it's AD, or any of the cloud IDPs. We analyze the risk and trigger inline security control if needed. Authentication firewall, energize security, additional MFA, blocking or not, assessment with ISPM and ITDR, and just-in-time access, privilege access security. You have so many possibilities there. Once the trust level has been raised, we are returning the security verdict to the IAM and the infrastructure or the IDP, and no proxies, no application changes, and grant or deny access. In their words, we work quickly to able to work with the IR team to immediately put blocking policies. Cool. I'm not sure we have more time, but I want to show you a quick demo nevertheless. Welcome to the Silverfort Identity Security Platform System. This is our new and cool and lovely dashboard. I love that. You can see all the different packets and the different environments that are connected to your machine and to your data estate, to your organization, basically. So you have your authentication firewall, MFA, NHI security, privilege access, identity inventory, access intelligence, ISPM, and ITDR, right? And for example, if I go to, let's say what's relevant for our story, if we go to ITDR, identifying risk in real time, then we can actually see active incidents by by severity. This is my lab environment. I love this one. Um, we have a graph demonstration.
No, Yoat, sorry.
Yeah,
It's Philip here. I have 2 minutes left.
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
Yeah, so
Cool. I will just finish my sentence and switch to questions. So we can see the entire incident investigation for a graph perspective and all the touch points that are relevant, IAM enumeration, on-prem, off-prem, etc. When I mention policies, then you can also have host MFA, Active Directory, Entra, etc., risk-based, Kerberos, you name it, all devices. This is how we use to freeze the attack. And I would say that talk to me if you want to see more, because we can AI agent security. This is becoming big. Non-human identities, for example, for Active Directory, this works differently. You set basically who from where to where, machine to machine, who can access what. With that, I hope it was interesting. I hope we have some questions. We can take it now or we can take it later. And Philip, what's up, man? How's it going?
yeah. Thank you for the presentation, Yoat. It was
Mhm.
super interesting. So I was not mistaken at the very beginning that the use case you showed shows really a lot of great stuff, and the demo was also super cool and I think intuitive. We
Mhm.
have no questions on the chat. I encourage people to maybe think and come back on chat too with the questions if they are open. So yeah, with that, first, thank you very much again, Yot. Super cool, super interesting presentation. I hope everyone enjoyed that. And yeah, and I think if you have any questions, we you can post them on chat. Thank you,
Maybe
guys.
maybe
Yeah,
just last one before we go. I'll be very happy. Let me just quickly reshare my screen because we don't have questions, and I would love, just to for people, you can see my I hope you can see my screen again, right?
yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I would love, give me a rating. If you love it, give it a 5-star rating. If not, give it a different one so we can improve, or talk to me and add me on your LinkedIn. And again, Philip, thank you so much. Feedback is important, but the message, identity security, let's go big. Thank you so much. Thank you, Hack Summit.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye bye.